Cuídate mucho.
Carlos, ¿para qué te llamaba nuestra nieta?
Quería saber si tenía miedo a vacunarme contra el COVID. Le dije que no hiciera caso a rumores. Abuelina, la vacuna es segura.
Y la mejor protección contra el COVID. Por eso nos vacunaremos en el condado de Montgomery.
Haz tú lo mismo. Cuando te toque, debes preinscribirte en español, llamando al 301-270-8432.
Recuerda que nuestra salud y bienestar son lo primero en el hogar. Hola, soy la abuelina y vivo en el condado de Montgomery. Aló, Carlos.
Abuelina, me encontré a Luis tosiendo en el mercado.
¿Ya ves? Hay que ponerse bien la mascarilla y guardar distancia. ¿Y sabes si él y su familia se hicieron una prueba del COVID?
Luis dice que no sabe a dónde ir.
En nuestra salud y bienestar lo orientarán. Además, la prueba es gratis. Apúntale el número 301-270-8432 a llamar ya, porque nuestra salud y bienestar son lo primero en el hogar.
Abuelina, qué preocupante. Son muchos los casos de COVID entre los latinos del condado de Montgomery.
Es cierto, Carlos. Hay que seguir cuidándonos.
Mejor prevenir ahora, para que en el futuro no nos falte ninguno de los nuestros.
Y en estas fiestas, solo compartir con los que viven bajo nuestro mismo techo. Llama al 301-270-8432, porque nuestra salud y bienestar son lo primero en el hogar.
Hola, soy don Carlos, esposo de la abuelina. Estoy muy angustiado por los contagios de COVID en el condado de Montgomery y que mis nietos se reúnan con sus amigos. Eso nos pone en riesgo a todos los que vivimos bajo el mismo techo. Si sales a la calle, es como si saliéramos todos contigo también. El COVID es un asunto muy serio. Cuídate y así nos cuidas a todos. Recuerda que nuestra salud y bienestar son lo primero en el hogar.
Hola a todos, I'm Carolina Galeano, MC alumna and producer at Montgomery College Television. Thank you for joining us for this conversation on the COVID-19 vaccine and our Latino, Latinx community, where we will have a chance to talk about what we know, what we want to know, what doubts we have about the vaccine. Now, we come together with an awareness that many of us play a key role in our familias. When the vaccine started to roll out, I realized that I would have a lot of responsibility on the role that I would play in my family getting registered, vaccinated, or maybe even convinced that this is right for them. So I want to talk about that. We are young, we are educated, tech savvy, and influential. So let's hold that together with some responsibility. We also know that COVID has hit our community very hard, and yet our vaccination rate, according to CDC data, is lagging far behind other racial groups. In fact, it is 8 times slower than that of non-Hispanic whites. So we want to talk with students and bounce our thoughts and questions about the vaccine with a health expert in our community. Joining us here today, we have 3 students. Rachel Acevedo, she's a public health sciences major at MC, hoping to transfer to UMD or George Washington University to pursue a career in medical laboratory sciences. She's a second-generation immigrant and currently an essential worker with advanced cardiology care as a medical assistant. We also have Oscar Ramirez. He's 20 years old. He's a general studies major at MC, graduating in the spring and hopefully transferring to American University to pursue a bachelor's degree in international studies and finance. He's a Venezuelan immigrant and currently an essential worker with Wells Fargo Bank. And we also have Daniel Munoz. He's a computer science major at MC and the son of a Colombian immigrant. He is a member of LULAC Lambda in DC, advocating for Latino and LGBT issues, an account manager with a local marketing firm, and is also a dual citizen of Colombia and the US. Hi, Daniel. One of the biggest obstacles to public health nowadays is misinformation. So in order for us to have a rich discussion based on facts, we've invited Doctora Ana Maria Izquierdo. She is a geriatric medicine specialist in Silver Spring who also leads the nonprofit Care for Your Health, supporting elders in our comunidad. Gracias, doctora. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Now, students, and for anyone that is watching, if you have any doubts about what you have heard or questions you would like to ask our health expert here today, I highly encourage you to do so through the chat or comments section because it's important to seek out facts. Now, let's begin our conversation. And this goes to all of you students. Tell me, how have you been impacted by COVID?
So for me, it was more anything from like my social life changed, and just spending time with family is different, since many of us know Hispanic families, like partying and gatherings and spending time with family. So that really affected me in a way, because that was just part of my culture. So, now it's just talking through a phone and, visiting family back home, not, not during this time because it's not the best. So that's what mainly affected me.
So I enrolled in Montgomery College and I was scheduled to start my classes in the spring of 2020. And as a computer science major, I had the choice to be able to take my classes in person or online. And as a full time professional working in marketing, I really needed to be able to work remotely and work at my own pace. So the pandemic didn't affect my school as much as it did affect everything else in life. I was doing everything school, work, FaceTime, and other things with friends and family, all from my apartment. So I was here within my 4 walls all the time. It was at times overwhelming. It feels wild that we are a year into the pandemic.
Thank you. How about you, Oscar?
I feel like I've definitely experienced a lot of change around me. Not not even like my direct life, but like my friends and family. I see how they have been affected by COVID. Um, when I talk about like school, before I used to like be a student senator and vice president of the Latino Student Union and the Model UN, and I used to go to conferences and just be very active and vocal in the campus. Now my social life is different, as I said. Everything's like online now, and I don't want to get my friends sick, especially those who work from their homes. So I just try to, get in touch with them whenever I can. But it's just really difficult in this era that, everything's just fast paced and we have so many things going on, especially as one of our colleagues here said that, so many things happening around us, and more that so that we live in DC. it's like we see all of these movements and protests and elections and whatnot, and we just feel like a need to act up to like participate, but we know we can't because in person, I mean, because of coronavirus and it's serious. Some people like are getting really sick. So I just try to engage with everybody online now, and I think that's how COVID has affected me.
One thing I really want to know is just what have you heard about the vaccines? Obviously, we're kind of going through a bit of information overload, but what are some of the things that you are hearing? What is your family saying? Let's have that conversation.
So
Sure,
I
I'll go
can go.
first. Oh,
Oh, you can go.
all right. So when it comes to the vaccine, a lot of my family is eager to get vaccinated. We have a few people in our family, on both my mom's side, my dad's side, family in the United States, in Colombia, in Chile, that are health professionals that are aware of what all the different percentages mean when they say that Pfizer and Moderna protect up to around 95% and the Johnson and Johnson, is a little lower, but we know that there are different testing variables with how the vaccine trials were conducted, that the Johnson and Johnson is relatively newer than the Pfizer and Moderna, the different storages, the different doses, but all in all, I feel happy that everybody has a consensus of the fact that these vaccines are rigorously tested for safety and efficacy against different strains and in different environments. And I feel fortunate enough that, I live in Montgomery County and that we have a plan to get vaccinated with a schedule and everything. It's not the same everywhere else, let alone in the US and outside of it. But, the vaccine is something that we need to take in order to protect ourselves, our family, our friends, and our community. So the consensus on my side, thankfully, is that the vaccine is good. We're going to get the vaccine.
Oscar.
Um, so it's really funny in my side because my sister is fighting with like the whole family saying no, she doesn't want to take the vaccine because she doesn't know if she takes the vaccine today and then in 2040 the government like pushes a button and then she dies and she drops dead like that. And I'm like, that is, I don't think, that is possible. However, she did have the opportunity to, be offered the vaccine because she works in like in the dental industry, so she's an essential worker for that dental industry, and she refused to take it. And my mom was all over like, what are you doing? Like, what do you think you're doing? And all of that. And she was like, no, I don't want to drop dead in 2040. But then I feel like there are a lot of like theories out there. Like people just talk too much and like speculate, and they tell you, oh no, this thing, the government is like trying to poison you or something. But in reality, I feel like the vaccine is a very healthy step to take. Like, I mean, if you think about it, you get a flu shot every single year or every 6 months for that matter. And we're still here, you know? It's not like it's going to be something different or that we're being controlled by the government. Like, I feel that that is too much. However, my parents, they're all in for the vaccine. They want to take it. They live in Venezuela, so they, are depending on the government, and we all know how the Venezuelan government is. So they're still waiting for it. My aunt, she lives here, and she already got the vaccine, so she was vaccinated last month, and she tells me that everything's good with her. Like she feels just like regular, and she hasn't like felt anything different or anything. So I feel like from now on, what's gonna be working for our communities, especially because the Latino community, we are very like we don't know that that is going to work for us. Like we're very like everything's about like making sure that we have enough faith and just and trusting ourselves in God and that we're just going to get cured or saved or just not even get the virus. So I feel like for our community, it'll be very important for like people that have gotten the vaccine to just say it and be like, oh, I'm feeling well, like, word of mouth, being like, I just got vaccinated last week and I'm feeling great. So I think that's going to help our communities get vaccinated, especially the Latino community. And as it comes down to me being vaccinated, I would get vaccinated. I trust the science, so I think it's good.
As you both were sharing, there were certainly a few things that came to mind that I've heard before. I do want to take advantage of that. We have Doctora Izquierdo with us because I'm sure she hears this a lot as well. And Doctora, you were in your car because you were rushing to get vaccines from one place to another. So I just want to acknowledge that you are in that, in that daily battle against this virus. So thank you for, first of all, for joining us and tell us a little bit about that. Why, I mean, even just a sense of that sense that people have that if they take this now, something is going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from
Yeah.
now, right? So where
I
is that?
think,
What's that about?
yeah, I think it's a misunderstanding of how the vaccine works. So this is the first vaccine that instead of putting a piece of the virus, we are putting a piece of RNA, of genetic material, and making our body create the protein so that we can create the defenses, right? So the protein, you've all seen it, right? The protein, it looks like una zeta, and then what our body does is like, oh, you don't belong here, and it starts creating antibodies that end up on top of the zeta and don't allow the virus to give the infection. So I think part of all these, like the government is chipping us, comes from not understanding what that is. mRNA is, let's say, the translator of the instructions. Our body, their instruction book is the DNA. Then mRNA is how the instruction manual gets sort of translated so that the people that build stuff can build it, right? Now, what happens is that this instruction will make the protein. Now, we do not have any mechanism in our body to convert that RNA into DNA that sticks in our body. Okay? So this idea that they're gonna chip us is not based on the reality of how our body works. How our body works is it will produce the protein and it will break the mRNA in small little pieces and use the pieces to build something new. We are very recyclable. In our body, we don't waste much. So this idea that we are going to have this mRNA chip so that people can give instructions is really not based in fact. The other thing that people don't realize is that 8% of our DNA material today, 8% of our DNA came at some point in our history as human beings from a virus. We already have viral DNA in our body. And the cool thing about this is that this DNA protects the pieces of our DNA that code our proteins. So it's protective. So we are being scared first of an impossibility. It is biologically impossible because our body destroys the mRNA once it's used, and we don't have the capacity to convert it into DNA. But with other types of viruses that are directly DNA, this has happened. This has actually ended up protecting us. So it's biologically impossible that coronavirus mRNA ends up in our genetic makeup. We just don't have transcriptase inverse in our body. And other types of viruses that have done that have actually helped us and not hurt us. So that is that. And then another thing that Diego was saying that I think is worth mentioning, which is, oh, they developed them so fast. Well, you need to know that in 2013, the NIH started a group to study emerging diseases, okay? And this group used to study Ebola, the SARS, the Middle Eastern SARS, anything that popped up new, they would look at it, study it, and see how they would be able to treat or create vaccines. So all the studies that had to do with non-human participation were done before the pandemic started, right? So then what happens? We cannot do the studies. So what happened is that we cannot do the studies with humans because there's no disease. How can I study if this protects you of a disease if I don't have the disease, right? So when the pandemic started, they were ready and they started these trials right away. So that's how this was developed so fast. It was not because suddenly vamos a poner cuatro cosas aquí. It was actually years of work. There was this Hungarian lady that insisted on having a research line on coronavirus. So all over the world, people had been working on this before 2020. So I want to reassure you with that.
Right, right. Now, I want to hear from Rachel. Rachel, how about you? What are you here? I mean, you're in the medical field already as a student. So what conversations are you having with your family? How about yourself, right? With taking with the vaccine, have you had access to it yet? Tell me about that.
Yeah, last month I had my second dose of the COVID vaccine, and about talking about the information I got from other sources, either media, social media, TV, and just my coworkers at work, the doctors I work with. I think in my part it was a little overwhelming, and at the same time I didn't know what was reliable, like see where is the main source coming from, and what can I trust, and what can I take from there. That's why I think I found it a little bit overwhelming. I was scared at the beginning, what was going to happen to me, the side effects, the symptoms, and everything, but I knew I was also this is coming from sciences and like people that study for years. And as Dr. Izquierdo said, there's been research going on for years. So I knew this was not just like something that was gonna change my genetic modification or alter my body in a couple of years, that I was gonna have a side effect, or I was, there was something that made me say, okay, I'm gonna get it. And maybe part of it was also like me being already overwhelmed by COVID going on, but also part of it, I knew that getting the vaccine, it was definitely a blessing, and like I'm grateful that my work offered it, because I knew that it was gonna be, I needed in order to keep working and helping others, people that have underlying diseases that that might had COVID already or might get COVID, and I am doing something for the humanity and for everyone. So the information that was out there, I was mainly focusing more on articles I read from public scientists, and less from the TV and from news out there. I just thought that news were very overwhelming to me in a way.
Now, I know all of you have come with questions as well, since we have Doctora Izquierdo. So I want to make sure we get to them. So if whoever wants to start first, maybe we can go in this order. Daniel, Oscar. Uh, does that work?
What
Sure.
order is it?
Daniel, Oscar, Rachel, if you guys let's go in a bit of a rapid fire, Q&A with the doctor since we have her here.
So I
Go
do
ahead.
have two quick questions. So it's important to highlight what La Doctora Izquierdo said. It's like there are a lot of like research searchers trying to come up with vaccines to help us fight the coronavirus. But I do have a question for you, Doctor Izquierdo.
Sí.
How we know that there are different variants of the virus. We also know that there was a variant that came from the UK into the United States and that it spreads faster than what the main coronavirus did when it started. So, how would you say that the vaccine, that if we take it right now, how would you say that it will protect us against the different variants that the coronavirus has? And will um, we will have to get more vaccines, or is it just one to fight all of the variants?
So the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are actually very good for the US variant. In Maryland, it is the most common variant, and the other variants are so unusual that they come up in the news. If something is in the news, you can tell that it's not very common. Now, we don't know. One thing that we don't know is whether we are going to have to take the vaccine yearly, like the flu, and or a one-time thing, or every 5 years, like the pneumonia. So we don't know right now. Right now, we know that if you take the vaccine today, you will be protected. And remember, during the trials for vaccines, nobody died of vaccination, but 10,000 people died of coronavirus. So when you're worried that you may die in 20 years, or whatever, remember that you are likely to die today of coronavirus, particularly if you are Latino or African American. So when you look at the risk, remember that.
Doctora, we have friends and we have members of our community that have a mixed immigration status. Some of them are also non citizens. How can we be helping those of us within our community that are of a mixed immigration status or are non-citizens, help them get the vaccine without worry of ICE or any fears of deportation? Because I have a fear that that fear is going to prevent a lot of people from seeking access to the vaccine.
Not only access to the vaccine, access to care. I have seen people die at home without seeking care because they were scared of that. So it is very important to have this conversation. Um, there is no requirement that you have documents or that you show any immigration documentation. Now, I have heard, and I want to tell you guys, that some CVSs will ask for that documentation and deny you service if you don't bring it. Do not bring it. Just be very firm and say, this is not required. This is my name. This is my date of birth. This is my, whatever it is that you need. But do not engage. There is no requirement from the government that you have to be a citizen or a permanent resident or a documented resident to actually get vaccines. So just go get it. If you hear someone that is denied or is asked for this documentation, leave and let the county know. Call the number that will be shared and let them know that this is happening, so people can go and advocate and make sure that this is not happening. There should not be a problem with you getting a vaccine, and if it becomes, call us and we will fight for that.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Rachel, do you have a question?
Yes. So this question is more about like looking to the future and more, about the information we get from this new virus. I wanted to know, like, how will this change or improve the progress of, um, moving on to other, I'll say cures, but other, um, other treatments for other diseases such as cancer, for example. Since you have a lot of experience in this field and you know
Mhm.
about research and
Yeah.
all of that, I wanted to know how is this gonna improve, or is it gonna stay the same? What is out there that's gonna be released?
Yeah. So two different questions actually. One is, are we hearing from anything else going on? Yes, there is a trial in Europe going on, and the first numbers coming out of that trial are very promising on a curative treatment. Everybody's researching in two sort of pathways: vaccines to prevent and
Mm,
treatments to cure. So that is happening. I think in the next year or two, we'll hear more, data-driven information about that. There is not a lot of cross research going on between, RNA vaccines. Can we use RNA vaccines for other purposes? But this is a very new disease all in all, and it's very impressive the quantity of information that we've been able to gather in a year.
yeah.
So just, and very importantly, where you get your news from. Okay, do not get your news, how someone was saying, from the family WhatsApp, right? Or don't get the news from
Yes.
sensational, news. Please
Right.
check your sources. Okay, Facebook is probably not the best source in this world unless you trust the person behind that page. So where
Right.
you get the information about this research that's happening, will we need more vaccines, all these things, please use trusted sources, because I cannot tell you how much harm misinformation can do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying
Definitely.
that. And since you mentioned that, I do want to encourage our community, especially with multilingual families, to go and visit Salud y Bienestar. And you can also get information for getting a COVID test, for pre-registering for a vaccine. If your group qualifies, you can call them at 301-270-8432. Any last thoughts from anyone here? And I
Can I
want us
say
to,
one more
yeah.
thing? One more thing that I think is very important. The fact that once you have received the vaccine, you cannot get sick, or it's very unlikely you get sick, doesn't mean you cannot be contagious. So you need to continue to wear your mask. You need to continue to social distance, and you need to continue to get tested, particularly those of you in the front lines, regularly. Until we have herd immunity, we will need to continue to do all these things that we have been doing. So as you move forward and more of the population gets vaccinated, the level of virus in the community will decrease, and we will be able to stop those measures. But right now, even if you have the vaccine, please continue wearing masks. Please continue getting tested. Please continue washing your hands and social distancing.
Doctora, I have a question of my own. Looking at the coming
Yeah,
months,
yeah.
where one or two vulnerable people in our families does get the vaccine, how safe is it for us to increase our contact with them? Um, just exposure. I'm just thinking of like how much should I be thinking about exposure? I know it's really hard because so many of us just want that quick solution of I want to get the vaccine now, I can go back to life as normal, and that's not the case.
Exactly. La abuela
So
está vacunada, ¿no? La abuela ya está
right.
vacunada, vamos todos a la fiesta de la
Mhm.
quinceañera. No, it's not going to be like that. But sort of, if you were not visiting your grandma because you were worried, I'm saying grandma because they tend to be the older ones in the family, right? Because you were concerned about making them sick and they have the vaccine, maybe one visit every so often with masks, social distancing, and all those things will be less risky than it would have been before they got the vaccine. But again, vaccine is not 100%. Not even the highest percentage is 100. So there's still a risk to get sick. So everything you used to do before, again, sorry, I'm very annoying, but testing, masking, social distancing, and cleaning, those 4 things you need to continue to do. Now, si la abuela está vacunada and you want to go for a visit and you can social distance and, of course, la abuela también misses you, and it's important to keep them safe, but also taken care of, right? But it's not going to be black and white the next day. We're still going to have to do a lot of what we've been doing for a while until a bigger segment of the population is vaccinated.
I want to just thank you so much for your thoughts, for your questions. Anything that you would like to say to your friends, your family, La Tia in WhatsApp who's watching about this conversation? What has been
I just want to
the
say,
number one
hagan
thing?
la cola for the vaccine.
Sí, hagan la
yes.
cola desde ahorita, porque si no, uno nunca sabe y es mejor desde ahorita
Yeah.
And you don't know
anotarse.
if you can get pre-registered. I mean, there are people who you would not think can get pre-registered, but they qualify. So just do it. I mean, if you're able to, just do it. So it
When
changes.
it's out pre-register, they will only call you when it's your turn.
I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank the Latino Health Initiative, Salud y Bienestar, for helping us have this conversation. La doctora, who is just a champion in this work and in our community and in the most vulnerable parts of our Latino community, helping the elderly. So thank you for what you do. Let's just keep going along, and remember where to get information. And hopefully we will be together in person soon. With that, I will leave you with a short message from La Abuelina. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Cuídate mucho.
Carlos, ¿para qué te llamaba nuestra nieta?
Quería saber si tenía miedo a vacunarme contra el COVID. Te dije que no hiciera caso a rumores. Abuelina, la vacuna es segura.
Y la mejor protección contra el COVID. Por eso nos vacunaremos en el condado de Montgomery.
Haz tú lo mismo. Cuando te toque, debes preinscribirte en español, llamando al 301-270-8432.
Recuerda que nuestra salud y bienestar son lo primero en el hogar.